Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the United States Congress, I want to say first and foremost, thank you for giving me your audience here today. Thank you for gathering in the smallest room of the Capitol Hill building. I'm very thankful you've given me an audience today to speak about an issue that concerns me deeply. I'm here today to discuss with you a group of people whose voices have never echoed in the halls of this building. I'm here today to speak with you about a silenced minority that has been legislated into being criminal. See, these people have long been oppressed by society, but it's only been recent years that the public's allowed the government to criminalize these people. I'm here today because we must stop allowing states to make legislations that criminalize the activities that are necessary for homeless individuals and families to survive in this nation. Several major cities in the United States, including but not limited to Orlando, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, have created legislations and regulations that infringe on the rights of homeless people, homeless men and women specifically. It's now commonplace for major cities in America to ban public feeding of the homeless, criminalize acts such as sleeping in the public, or require a building or multiple permits for anyone who wants to help by feeding or donating food to the homeless. By requiring a physical structure or a permit to deliver food to the homeless or poverty-stricken, cities are in a sense trying to move the homeless out of sight through legislations that keep them out of sight. The legislations being passed are blanket legislations with misleading illusions to equality under the law. Statements such as a millionaire is equally as able to sleep is no more equally able to sleep on the street legally than a homeless person. See, millionaires aren't affected by not being able to sleep on the street, because why would they ever have to? Laws against sleeping in public places are clearly directed to criminalize necessary activity for Americans without a home to sleep in at night. If the federal government continues to allow states to create laws like this, they're simply allowing states to shirk their citizens. What am I saying? Allowing states to shirk their duties onto other states by not caring for their citizens. Specific examples of these legislations in these specific cities can be better explained with academic articles and publishings from sociologists who have dealt hand in hand with the homeless, specifically in the United States. But before addressing these legislations or getting to the bottom of what causes the government to feel the need to legislate the homeless out of sight, I figured I would have share an anecdote with you. In researching this subject, I found myself recalling memories from my past, like the first time I ever met a homeless person. I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was 13 years old, and I was at the Coca-Cola factory, or Coca-Cola World, in Atlanta, Georgia. We pulled the bus up about 100 yards away from the building, and the teachers shushed us all down, and I remember one of the teachers standing up and saying, okay, when we get off the bus, we're going to walk straight to this building in a single file line. No one stop and talk to anyone, and if this man up here asks you for money, don't look at him, don't answer him, just keep walking. Well, I'd never been exposed to what homelessness was. In fact, our teachers didn't say this homeless man. It was just a man that we were supposed to stay away from that could ask us for money. And I can completely understand the teachers having care for our safety, but I just couldn't grasp the idea of why this one man was posing such a threat to us. And whether I acted out of spite for my teachers, care for my common man, or just rebellious curiosity, that's irrelevant. The thing is I felt all of those things at that very moment. I remember walking up to him, with the group that we were walking with, not in single file, but walking past. And no one looked at him. No one said a word. He said nothing to anybody. And I reached in my pocket really quick, took $2 out, and put it in the hat that he had sitting in front of him with a little money in it. And, my heart was pounding. My fingertips, I could feel my pulse in them. My ears flushed up with blood, and he looked at me. My chest sank in. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what was going to happen. And he said, "Thank you. Thank you so much. You're a good man." I was a child. I was no more than 13 or 14 years old. And I got called a good man. This person recognized me as an individual, not as a child that needed guidance. I had acted on my own free will and given him this money against the wishes of my teacher, which he had not overheard. He had no idea. But that man saw humanity in me just as I saw it in him. It's been 10 years since I saw that man sitting down the road on the street in Atlanta. I've met many more homeless men and women since that day, and my fingertips no longer pulsate, my ears no longer flush with blood. I don't fear the homeless. And to be honest, I feel like I never really did. I feel like I was more afraid of getting in trouble or being punished by my superiors for acting out on my own and giving that man money. I was a 13-year-old kid. I had no concept of what money was, but this man needed it. I didn't need it. My parents could care for me. Socially constructed biases have ostracized these people from the public sphere in the same ways that the Hindu caste system has in India, or had in India. And in all honesty, I'm not sure if that's still going on. But I do know that there were people that were called untouchables, the bottom of the social caste system that gets criticized all the time in America for being unfair, when really we have it here. It's in our everyday public. Witness it when we're walking down the street, in big cities at least. Perhaps American culture is more to blame than American individuals, We live in a capitalist-driven society. It's profit-based. Everyone is supposed to be being productive or profitable. And when someone isn't, it's very deviant from the social norm. We live in a society in which we define men and women based on their possessions. Social exchange theory would say that we do not engage or continue relationships with people that aren't profitable. This would be a good example of that, because if a man is only his possessions, or man or woman, is only what they possess, and they possess nothing, then they are nothing. There's no reason to carry on a conversation or engage them in any type of relationship because they have nothing to give us. I met that homeless man in Atlanta, Georgia in 2002. 2 years later, Atlanta was voted America's second meanest city by the National Coalition for the Homeless. Sociologist Randall Amster described the homeless situation in his article, Patterns of Exclusion, Sanitizing Space, Criminalizing the Homeless. Amster says homeless persons embody the social fear of privileged consumers, fear for their families, fear for their children, fear that those people will harm them, and therefore must be placed as far away as possible from safe neighborhoods. Amster goes on to describe just the situation of being homelessness, the duality of the way that we think of them. He says, if regulation alone could achieve the purification of the public realm, we would all currently live in a world from which the homeless had completely disappeared. The thing is the homeless are bad for business. If there are homeless people matriculating is not the word, congregating in a certain area, an excessive number of homeless people, I suppose. It's bad for business because people associate the homeless with filth, disease, neglect, all because of media and depictions of them. Even in the news, you don't see homeless people in the news unless it's they're getting past blankets because it's freezing outside. And the issue is more of how cold it is outside instead of, even when it's warm, these people have no home. The issue is that states legislate these people out of sight because they're bad for business. Businesses can't run whenever people are afraid to walk past the door because they're afraid of being panhandled to, as my teachers were at this trip to the Coca-Cola World in Atlanta. I've grown up a lot since then. I've studied social inequalities and systems of privilege, but still, it's hard to really grasp what makes these people so different. It's nurture rather than nature that has taught me how to feel this way, even. Orlando, Florida recently passed legislations banning the feeding of the homeless without a permit. The basic gist of the law is if you feed the homeless outside of a shelter, which mainly is how religious organizations conduct their business, by feeding in local parks and in public places where the homeless are. By requiring them to have a permit, they're making it harder for them to serve the homeless. These nonprofit organizations do this at no cost to the government, at no cost to the common man. It's simply a service based off of their either religious faith or their sociological imagination. They care for the homeless in ways that the system lacks. By requiring them to have a permit, they also restrict them to serving food. The permit lasts, you recertify 2 times a year. And to the best of my knowledge, the way it works is you have one permit for every park, or every park in Orlando, Florida. You have one permit to use one time. So the people that are providing this service have to move from one park to another each time that they serve the homeless food. And once they run out, their permit is done for that 6-month period. The next 6-month period, it goes through the same process. But the thing is these parks aren't one next to the other. Orlando's a huge city. Asking the homeless to travel from one area to the other just to seek food. Think of the weather in Orlando, Florida. Think of the heat, the humidity. Someone who lacks nourishment, someone who's malnourished or malnutrition, having to walk with all their belongings because they have nowhere to put their belongings, all the way around the city just to find food. Sure, it's easy to argue that there are homeless shelters that these people could go to, but homeless shelters are overcrowded, and so are the soup kitchens. There's not a day that there isn't someone going hungry in any state in the United States. So what makes these states so special, the big city states? Las Vegas, Nevada, Orlando, Florida, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. These are only 3 of the major cities that are doing these types of legislations and regulations. Why would we require buildings for the homeless to go to feed? Or to feed. I'm talking about them, even myself, as if they're animals. But to go and receive any kind of care, there has to be a building. What difference does a building make? The building keeps them out of sight from the public. It saves the public from having to face the true realities of life. I believe that Randall Amster states that it's a kind of Disneyification is the word that he uses. Meaning how the world is so pristinely depicted in media now that it's almost like it distracts us from what's real. But that's the way the public sphere has become. They don't want to subject citizens to what's actually going on. No one should have to feel sorry for these people. It's almost like an implied sympathy. In the Johnson text, we read about, her name escapes me at this point in time at least, but a woman who said that even small children will run up to her in her wheelchair, unafraid to come and speak with her. It's what they learn from their parents and through nurture that makes them feel scared of someone in a wheelchair, for what they think they know about these people. The same type of implied sympathy that a person with a disability has, or a visible disability, is applied to homeless people. Their situation is so extremely catastrophic and so troubling that whether or not we mean to, there's an implied level of sympathy. It's almost as if we are being asked by this person to sympathize for them whenever they may not even want that in the first place, and probably don't. It's an issue of control for much of the American public. You've heard it, I'm sure, before. You can't give a homeless person money because they'll go spend it on liquor. You can buy them food, or you can take them somewhere and get them something. All that is a gross power struggle. It's an issue of control. You can't give a man money to buy something. You have to control how he spends it, because the homeless can't be trusted. They're dangerous. They're unclean. They're untouchables. What I'm asking today is that you find, ladies and gentlemen, men and women of the Congress, come together in a decision today to stop allowing states to discriminate against the homeless. Stop allowing them to be herded from county to county, city to city, until there's nowhere left for them to go. We must protect our citizens, property owners or not. It's time that America make a cohesive change as a whole. We are supposed to be individuals, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our states are divided by their treatment of the homeless. I mean, they're divided by many other things, but definitely in their treatment of the homeless. The thing is that as we allow these legislations to be made and continually be made, homeless are being herded to other areas that don't have these legislations yet. The homeless problem will only grow in states that don't have stricter laws keeping them out of the public sphere. As that problem increases, more states will start to form these legislations. More homeless people will be moved from state to state, city to city, until they're all grouped into one big area. It's reminiscent almost of course on a smaller scale, but the German sentiment about Jewish people during World War II, or just prior to World War II. The homeless have been demonized by media, so people don't want to speak for them. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, today to speak with them and say that we are all citizens of the United States, and we all deserve the same things. In closing, I would just like to say that I understand how many people have biases and how many people have preconceived notions, and some of you here today may have had experiences that differ with my anecdotes and that of Randall Amster. And I can completely understand that. But I ask that we come together today as fellow Americans in protection of the interests of our fellow man, and stop allowing states to legislate against the homeless and regulate in ways that make it hard for them to survive. Thank you very much for your time.